Welcome, I'm Ananya Dutt and I'm bringing you another edition of Race to Power, a show where we take you to the political corridors. Tonight we start from the White House corridors. Less than 20 days to go for elections and both candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, took the same stage. It wasn't a debate, but it did become nasty. Over in Kenya, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours. It seemed like the country was going to get a new deputy president, but a high court had other plans. Stay tuned to find out what's happening in Nairobi. Now, yesterday on this very show, a political analyst had called the US elections realignment politics. And our cover story is a good piece to take it further. The traditional bases are switching sides and the undecided voters are, well, still deciding. We start this show from a Catholic fundraising dinner in New York, where Donald Trump was in attendance in person. Kamala Harris made a virtual pit stop. And what transpired between them invoked a lot of laughter, but little sense.
Does it bother you that Trump guy insults you all the time? Because it really bothers my friends and me.
Oh, Mary Catherine, it's very important to always remember you should never let anyone tell you who you are. You tell them who you are.
Haters gonna hate, hate, hate. Shake it off.
Shake it off.
Shake it off.
Shake it off.
Always it's a rule. You gotta go to the dinner. You gotta do it. Otherwise, bad things are gonna happen to you from up there. You can't do what I just saw on that screen, but my opponent feels like she does not have to be here, which is deeply disrespectful to the event and in particular to our great Catholic community. Very disrespectful.
Now, Trump wasn't alone in calling Harris's absence disrespectful. Fellow Catholics agreed, and Harris was the first major party presidential candidate to skip the event since 1984.
22% of Americans identify as Catholic. Catholics will be a key demographic in every battleground state. I'm sorry, why is Vice President Harris not here?
Now, the annual dinner is a Catholic charity event. It has been a bipartisan tradition that attracts the city's elite that are majorly Catholics. The banter you saw earlier is usual, but given how close this election is, one has to look at who gains from this event. You see, Catholics are an important vote bank, the largest single religious denomination in America. And traditionally, they have sided with the Republican Party. The latest figures on a national level also show that Trump is in the lead among Catholic voters. The same number was evenly split back in 2020 between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Remember, Biden became the first Catholic president since John F. Kennedy. So while Trump is entering the Democratic territory of Black and Latino voters, Harris has mostly stayed away from engaging with the Catholic voters. Like she decided to skip this event in New York. Her team justified the act by saying that they would rather focus on swing states. And speaking of swing states, Pennsylvania, the main one, 2020 data shows 30% of the state's voters are Catholic. And the latest Real Clear Politics average shows that Trump is leading 48.3% to 47.9% in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, in the midst of all the political developments and the last leg of campaigning, Donald Trump is fighting another battle, a legal one. The Republican leader's election interference case has taken a dramatic turn, and the timing of it is being questioned. Late on Thursday, a judge denied the former president's request to block the release of court records and exhibits from the 2020 case. And as per reports, Trump's legal team had filed a last-minute request to stop case details from becoming public in the election interference case, requesting that the release be pushed to November 14th after the elections have taken place. The Republican presidential nominee has slammed the decision to unseal records as politically motivated to influence the 2024 presidential elections. However, the court slammed the defense, calling for relevant defense rather than making political statements. Just last year, Trump had pleaded not guilty to federal charges of undertaking a quote-unquote criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 elections in order to remain in power. The trial resumed in August this year, and after a Supreme Court ruling on a separate case granting partial presidential immunity to Trump, the fresh indictment against the former US president is still based on the same 4 charges as before. However, Trump's team will try to get the case thrown out by shouldering it on presidential immunity, among other reasons. And to get us some perspective, we are now being joined by Dr. Matthew Tarpe, Assistant Professor of Political Science at Pittsburgh State University. Professor, thank you so much for joining us here on WION.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's so much to unpack, but let me begin with the Catholic voters. How important are they, and which side do you think they're swaying this time?
Well, obviously a large segment of the American electorate, so one that any candidate is going to ignore at their own expense. But it's important to keep in mind that the Catholic voters, the Catholic electorate is a very diverse electorate. So if you look among white Catholics, you see overwhelming favorability towards former President Trump. But if you look among Hispanic Catholics, you see overwhelming favorability towards the Democratic Party and Vice President Kamala Harris. So I think on balance, the polls I've seen have shown Trump in the lead. And given how tight this election is, I think that, this group of voters could end up playing a very important role if either of the candidates are able to sway the group as a whole or any of the subgroups within the group in their direction.
Right. Professor, it also seems that Kamala Harris is in a very precarious position because she definitely is not aggressively campaigning in the uncharted territory to say which are the Catholic voters. But at the same time, polls show that she is also losing out on the traditional Democratic base, which are the black voters and the Latino voters. Why do you think this is happening?
It's hard to say. It's hard to pinpoint a cause. I think an important thing to keep in mind is that in the United States, we have the Electoral College. And so if you look at aggregate polls, it's informative, but it's important to keep in mind that what's ultimately going to decide the election is the polls in the states that are undecided, right? So it's going to matter who wins the electoral votes in those swing states. And I've seen polls that have shown recently, for example, among black voters, an increase in Vice President Harris's favorability from September to October. That was a poll from Howard University. But I do think the overall sort of decline among bases that are historically very supportive of the Democratic Party is very concerning for the Harris campaign, given how tight this election is. The issues that I have seen that are important to these groups of voters that, or at least the subgroups of these groups of voters that are more inclined to sort of switch from the historical or vote against the historical sort of precedent of their group has a lot to do with the economy and inflation. And so these types of issues, I think, are potentially having a significant influence. But I think it's hard to pinpoint an exact cause of any kind of decline in the polls.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for joining us here on WION and getting us your insights.
Thank you.
On today's economic battleground in the US, tax policy takes center stage. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are proposing drastically different visions for the future of the tax code, with billionaires lining up on both sides. Our next report dives into the details of these competing tax plans and the potential impacts on everyday Americans like you.
Tax policy is set to become a central issue following the upcoming election. Key provisions of former President Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act are due to expire in 2025. Among the expiring measures are reductions in personal income tax rates, which lowered the top bracket from 39.6% to 37% and reduced several other brackets as well. Critics argue that the 2017 cuts fueled economic inequality, while supporters, including Trump, are pushing for a clean extension of the law. The tax battle extends beyond personal income tax. Trump's 2017 law halved the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, which increased both domestic and foreign investment in the US. Trump plans to lower the rate even further to 15%, citing the need for more investment. Harris disagrees, proposing an increase to 28% and arguing that Trump's cuts disproportionately benefit corporations and the wealthiest Americans. Financially focused Democrats warn that too many corporate tax breaks could lead to monopolies, raising concerns about economic concentration and wealth distribution. Billionaires are lining up behind competing tax policies. Elon Musk, who has previously benefited from the corporate tax cuts, is backing Trump's proposal to extend the 2017 law. This includes maintaining lower personal and corporate tax rates. Trump's policy has strong support from business magnates, many of whom argue that these cuts fueled growth and investment. On the other side, Vice President Kamala Harris is pushing for higher corporate taxes. Philanthropists are among those supporting Harris's vision. They argue that higher taxes on the wealthy are necessary to fund infrastructure, education, and housing initiatives. As the 2026 tax changes loom, the support of influential billionaires may significantly shape the debate over how to fund America's future. Business Report WION, World is One.
Let's shift focus to India now. It has only been a few days since India's Jammu and Kashmir got a new government. But Omar Abdullah's cabinet has now come under strong criticism after ignoring Article 370 and 35A in the very first meeting of the ministers. Sources within the government say that resolution was passed by the National Conference Party on the restoration of statehood and did not mention anything about the Article 370 or 35A.
Omar Abdullah, along with his ministers, is being criticized by the opposition parties in Jammu and Kashmir for only talking about statehood and ignoring Article 370. These political leaders said that Omar fought the election on the promise of restoration of Article 370 and statehood. Omar government has conveniently ignored the issue of special status of Jammu and Kashmir. The opposition leaders call it a betrayal on Omar's part as he asked for votes on the restoration of Article 370.
It's very painful to learn that your cabinet has passed a resolution only on statehood and ignored Article 370. It's been a principled stand of his party, and it's very clear that Omar Abdullah is playing under the hands of the BJP. If Amit Shah and the Prime Minister have already said that they will return to statehood, then why is he only talking about statehood and ignoring his main agenda? They fought the elections on Article 370, and now it seems there's a game going on between the NC and the BJP. He's running away from the main issue.
The People's Democratic Party has also taken a dig at Omar Abdullah for taking a U-turn from the promise he made to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. MLA of Pulwama, Wahid Para of PDP, said that statehood is already promised by the Prime Minister. So why talk about that and ignore the issue of Article 370?
The decision taken on August 5, 2019 of revoking the special status of Jammu and Kashmir was against the wishes of people of the state, and first resolution, which was promised by Omar Abdullah, was to talk about Article 370. And now we have read that they have taken a resolution only on statehood, which Prime Minister has already promised. BJP also demands the same. Kashmiris want the restoration of Article 370, and unfortunately Omar has taken a U-turn and also normalization of the decision taken on August 5th, 2019.
People's Conference leader and MLA of Handwara, Sajad Ghanilon, has also hit out at Omar Abdullah-led government, saying he failed to understand why this resolution should not have been reserved for assembly. He also said that by doing this, it also trivializes these issues.
Omar Abdullah-led government has come under fire from the opposition political parties after the first cabinet meet in which a resolution was passed on the return of statehood, ignoring Article 370 and 35A. The opposition political parties have called it a betrayal to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, the government says it's the first step in the restoration of Article 370 and 35A. With video journalist Firoz Idris Lone for WION World is One.
Now, an important story is coming in from Kenya, where political drama unfolds as we speak. A high court has put a halt to the process of ousting the now impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Just a short while back, a high court judge issued an injunction suspending the process till October 24th in response to Gachagua's legal team challenging his ouster as unfair and rushed. Just a short while before the court's intervention, Kenya's parliament had voted to replace the impeached deputy after President William Ruto appointed Interior Minister Kithure Kindika as his number 2.
The vote on the nomination of Professor Kithure Kindiki to fill the vacancy in the office of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya is as follows. Abstentions, nil. Noes, nil. Ayes, 236. Present and voting, as we had advised you earlier, the vote is overwhelmingly yes. So the nomination is herewith declared passed by the House.
Rigathi Gachagua was impeached and ousted from office after Kenya's Senate carried out an investigation into 11 charges that the deputy president was accused of. The leader had pleaded not guilty to all the accusations against him and has repeatedly called the impeachment an unfair process against him backed by the president himself. However, Kenya's citizens feel the entire process has been disappointing and rushed.
No, for me, I feel the process was very fair because out of the 11 counts, they found the 5 counts. So that means there's something that was not adding up. His record was not clean. You know, him being the deputy president, he ought to have represented the interest of the national governance, not just the Murima. No. So that is where he really messed. He played with the tribal card. Yeah.
This regime is very disappointing. So next season or next election, we'll vote them out because the parliament or the legislature is being used by the executive to lose the deputy president. So it was unfair.
Now, correspondent Louisa Olanier has more on this from Lagos.
Being absent in court today due to health issues, the Kenyan Vice President Rigathi Gachagua was earlier impeached by lawmakers on Friday. The decision, which divided Kenyans, has been suspended by Kenyan High Court after an appeal by the Vice President's legal team, alluding the process to be unfair. Gachagua has denied all allegations of corruption as well as other charges brought against him. The presiding judge has suspended the process until October 24. Fingers are crossed if the politician will escape the process, as today's move makes him the first deputy president to be ousted in this manner since impeachment was introduced in Kenya's revised 2010 constitution. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani, WION World is One.
Let's now go across to Pakistan, with the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf All set to hold a nationwide protest against the proposed constitutional amendment bill, the Punjab government has enforced prohibitory orders across the province. It has barred all forms of protests, rallies and public gatherings till Saturday. Also, all public and private institutions, including schools and colleges, will remain closed as a public holiday has been declared across the province. The decision was taken after authorities cited security concerns. PTI's political committee, which met the day before yesterday, called for peaceful protests across the nation. This after the Pakistan People's Party, also known as the PPP, and Jamaat Ulema-il-Islam Fazl reportedly reached a consensus on the joint draft of the bill. Among other things, the bill aims to set up a federal constitutional court and fix the tenure of the Chief Justice of Pakistan to 3 years. PTI has decided all regional and local organizations associated with the party to hold peaceful demonstrations outside district headquarters. The Chief Justice of Pakistan, Qazi Faiz Isa, is set to retire on October 25th. Justice Syed Mansoor Ali Shah is next in line to become the top judge. According to reports, a section within the government has expressed apprehensions that the results of the 2024 general elections may be tossed out after the retirement of the CJP Isa. Last month, the coalition government failed to even table the amendments in the parliament after it fell short of the required two-third majority. Let's now take a look at what else is making headlines in the world of elections and politics. The race to Tory leadership is shaping up to be no less than a national election. Remaining two candidates, Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick, faced an audience of Conservative Party members and Britons combined in the only televised debate ahead of the verdict. The two leaders who are battling it out to succeed Rishi Sunak as Tory's next leader were not put face to face like a traditional debate. Rather, they took turns to answer questions from the audience members on their vision and party policy. According to reports, Kemi Badenoch was considered the winner of this critical debate, with 75% audience members favouring her and only 25% in favour for Jenrick. The final name of Sunak's successor is expected to be announced next month. The battle between Philippines' vice president and president is getting ugly ahead of election season in the country. Vice President Sara Duterte has threatened to dig up the remains of President Ferdinand Marcos's father and then toss them into the sea. The families of both influential leaders have had a very public fallout as both try to galvanize support ahead of the midterm elections next year. And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta.
As Joker 2 fails miserably at the box office, we tell you how the movie might impact DC's future. Find some lesser-known facts about Jigra star Alia Bhatt. And decode the mystery behind The Simpsons predictions. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION eClub.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership, we will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
The US race to power, marked by high-octane campaign rallies, life-threatening encounters, game-changing presidential debates, the color and the drama, the key defining moments, deep insights and informed analysis. Watch continuous coverage of the US presidential elections 2024 on WION World is One.
Business Masters is a wonderful initiative. It not just talks about what drives business, it also talks about the leader and what drives the leader who runs the business as well.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The US race to power, marked by high-octane campaign rallies, life-threatening encounters, game-changing presidential debates, the color and the drama, the key defining moments, deep insights and informed analysis. Watch continuous coverage of the US presidential elections